The world of League of Legends is home to countless races and civilizations. Over time, empires arose that had the potential of ruling the entire world. But none of them were as legendary as the people from the deserts of the continent of Shurima. This empire was once a thriving community that encompassed the entire desert of Shurima. After an era of prosperity, the shining capital fell to ruins and the empire crumbled. Over millennia, the stories of this empire became myth and legends among the descendants of the survivors. In this video, we learn how this empire rose to such enormous size and later faded into nothing more than stories and legends. This is the history of Shurima. The might of the sun. The Targonians have always possessed a strong connection to the celestial realm and their beings. They were able to receive and channel celestial magic, and a selected few were blessed with the power of individual celestials. They passed on their knowledge and beliefs to the inhabitants of the desert at the foot of the mountain, and thus this people formed the sun disk in Narimazet to receive the magic of the celestial realm. After this first sun disk was destroyed following a failed ascension ceremony, the people of Shurima, presumably with the help of the magicians of Ishtar, built a much larger one in the capital city of Shurima. Water began to flow from the center of the enormous structure. This oasis of the dawn was feeding a network of rivers throughout Shurima, thus bringing water, life and prosperity for thousands of years to come. Godly Ascension. Through the sun disk, it was possible to channel magic similar to that used by the Targonians on Mount Targon. Due to their prophecies of an unknown future war, the Shurimans also began to bless selected citizens of their empire with otherworldly powers, calling them the Ascended or God Warriors, an honor given only to the most selfless Shurimans. However, ascension was not always successful. Failed ascensions resulted in physical and mental destruction and, if one survived, disfigurement into chimerical beings called Bakai. Setaka was one of the first ascended. With her experience as a warrior and a celestial weapon Kalikar, she would lead Shurima's forces in their conquest for centuries. With the power of the God Warriors, Shurima united many peoples as well as independent nations, such as Ikathia and Ishtar, which had joined voluntarily. Ikathia's Rebellion. The Ikathians were always treated differently by the Shuriman Empire than the rest of the realm. Unrest among the population grew and the first thoughts of rebellion arose. The elemental mage Zillion noticed the people's growing discontent but advised against fighting due to Shurima's military strength and the power of the Ascended. He set out on a journey to gather diplomatic support from other nations. However, all requests were rejected out of fear of the Empire and its God Warriors. At the same time, an earthquake struck Ikathia, releasing a void rift. Mages saw this as an opportunity to break away from Shurima by harnessing the power of the void against the Ascended. Upon his return, Zillion was confronted with this proposal and rejected it due to the strangeness and uncertainty of the discovered powers. Ikathia's discontent grew to such an extent that Shurima's followers were banished or even killed. Entire Shuriman settlements were raided and razed to the ground. The city Bizak was destroyed by the Kohari people, and their warrior Sai Jax killed a local Ascended, whose head was triumphantly displayed during a victory march through the city. The Void Wars. Following Ikathian's militant uprising, Shurima was forced to take harsh countermeasures. A group of God warriors marched to Ikathia with massive armies to put a stop to the unrest. The rebellious people quickly found themselves cornered and forced to resort to their last resort. Desperately attempting to harness the magic of the void, the mages of Ikathia unleashed a massive void rift. Countless void beings infiltrated the material world, taking on grotesque forms, and nature itself was corrupted and distorted by the unknown power. The armed forces faced a seemingly endless onslaught of monsters, and a battle broke out between the Ascended and the Voidborn. The God Warriors witnessed bloodshed, destruction and horror beyond the imagination. Some of them, including Setaka, fell in battle. The surviving Ascended were forced to retreat, abandoning Icathia to the void. The God Warrior of Ishtar, Nezuk, petitioned the Emperor of Shurima for permission to build a weapon to repel the void. After months of inhuman labor, he presented his creation, a fortress of living, flying stone, piloted and maintained by some of Ishtar's most powerful mages and Ascended. However, the weapon's use was unsuccessful. The void consumed the object faster than the mages could maintain it, and the fortress collapsed to the ground. The sole survivor, Nezuk himself, discovered that the void rift was now exposed to the sky from the impact. The Ascended Horror created an enchanted weapon, the Netherblade, and fought the void at its very root in its underground tunnels. The twin God Warriors, Shabaka and Shabake, ultimately succeeded in sealing the massive rift in Icathia and in this stopping the spread of the void. Even though the rift could be closed, Icathia is irreparably damaged and corrupted, and a portion of the Shurima desert, the Saikale, is contaminated with Voidborns. The Ascended who survived the battle against the Void and the horrors it brought with it were given the title of the Sunborn. The end of an empire. Approximately 2,000 years before the founding of Noxus, the current Emperor of Shurima and his family were assassinated. The only survivors of the attack were the ruler's youngest son and his loyal friend Thereth, a former slave. The educated and socially committed Azir suddenly became heir to the throne and had opportunity to realize his shared dream with Thereth of abolishing slavery. However, in preparation for his coronation, he was advised against immediate implementation of his plan as it could lead to unsequent uprising. Trusting his advisors, he postponed his plans, much to the disappointment of his close friend Thereth. Time passed and the empire flourished under Azir's kindness. Convinced by Shurima's progress, Azir wanted to share the empire's wealth with the entire world so that every people could benefit from Shurima's progress. Seraph, now a powerful mage, advised him to perform the Ascension ceremony to expand his power and influence. Ascension hadn't been performed for centuries, and warnings were given about the risks of the ceremony, but the young ruler nevertheless agreed. After extensive preparation, the day of Ascension had arrived. Azir was ready to perform the ritual under Seraph's guidance. The ruler took his place on the platform and prepared to receive the magical energies of the Sun Disk. When the moment of Ascension arrived, however, Seraph intervened. Scruples and resentment had taken root in his heart. He saw the once shared dream of a world without slavery as nothing more than a political tactic by his friend to blind the lower classes and win them over for his side. The magician pushed the empire from the platform, took his place, and intended to receive the Ascension himself. The betrayal caused the ritual to fail. The energy destroyed Thereth's human body, and with it the Sun Disk and the entire capital. Without its ruler and the capital, whose central magical structure provided the life-giving water for all of Shurima, it was only a matter of time before the empire sank into the dunes of the desert. Twilight of the Gods. Without leadership, the Sunborn were left on their own. Scarred by the horrors they experienced in their struggle against the void and bored with a life of aimless immortality, some began to pursue selfish goals of conquest and domination, corrupting their hearts. They mastered forbidden magics, reshaped their armor and their own flesh with blood magic, and became tyrannical rulers. A civil war broke out among these fallen beings now called Darkin and the remaining Sunborn. With the help of Mount Targon, the aspect host of Twilight Nisha and the god warrior Tarnari announced a meeting of the warring factions. The Kalika, Setaka's former weapon, was to be given to one of Azir's descendants, thus appointing a new leader. The warmongers present disagreed, each wanting the weapon for themselves and thus becoming the new ruler. To counter the emerging dispute and prevent an escalation, Tarnari used the weapon herself, combining Misha's magic and her own to direct a powerful beam of magical moonlight onto the conference. Some of the god warriors present were annihilated, a few managed to escape, and Tarnari lost her ascension. The Darkin War continued to escalate. and at its climax Tarnari's followers were tasked with sealing the Darkin in their own weapons under the guidance of Misha. The blood of the ancestors. Thousands of years passed since the fall of the Sun Disk and the fall of the Empire. Without the water of the Oasis of the Dawn, many tribes retreated to the coast of the continent and isolated oases in the desert. The glorious empire became a desert populated by individual tribes and settlements that made a living through mercenary trade, grave robbery and trading. One of these mercenaries, Sivir, was hired by a Noxian noblewoman nearly 1,000 years after the founding of Noxus. The woman named Cassiopeia belonged to a secret circle of the empire and was searching for magical artifacts in the Shuriman desert. She needed experienced locals to guide her to the ruins of the former capital and escort her into its depth. Sivir agreed and gathered her best man to lead the stranger. Arriving at the ruins, they find treasures dating back thousands of years. Sivir's men push further into the ruins and trigger deadly traps. Unimpressed, Cassiopeia demands further advance into the ruins until they find the Tomb of Emperors. Unaware that Sivir's ancient weapon was the key to this burial chamber, she was betrayed and stabbed by her client. When Cassiopeia inserted the weapon into the lock, a protective mechanism is triggered, cursing the woman and forcing her to retreat. The bleeding, dying Sivir tries to fight her way out of the ruins, but falls unconscious from blood loss. Her blood soaks the sand and awakens an ancient magic. Unaware that she is the last of Azir's bloodline, the former emperor resurrects and finds the young woman dying on the ground. He takes her to the ruins of the Dawn and lowers her into the water to save her. Sivir survived, and through the former ruler's selfless act, he completes the final step of his ascension and becomes a god warrior. With his newfound power, he raises the Sun Disk, lifts the capital out of the desert dunes, and in the midst of the huge structure, water begins to flow again in the Oasis of the Dawn. After millennia of decay, Azir has returned, and with him the capital city of Shurima and its life-giving waters. But the empire of Shurima was once vast, and the capital is only the beginning of the reconstruction. As Ishtal vanished from the map and the void spread beneath the desert dunes and along the continent's coast, knowledge and civilization from thousands of years were lost. No one knows what still lies hidden in the sands of Shurima, but the desert winds whisper of secrets, secrets that refuse to remain buried in the dunes. Which one of these secrets would you like to discover, and which ones do you think should never see the light of the Sun Disk again? Let me know in the comments and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. On my channel you will find more videos about the oldest stories in League of Legends and an overview of the most important events in Runeterra. If you don't want to miss anything, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Thank you for your attention and interest in the world of League of Legends, and maybe I'll see you in the next video.